So our moderator for this event is Raheel, who I've had the pleasure of being able to work with for the past 2-3 weeks for other open-related events. He is a graduate from George Washington University and an incoming JD candidate at Fordham School of Law. So everyone, let's welcome him to the stage.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for Ovid for granting me this opportunity to be here. Just a brief thing about me, as she mentioned, I'm a graduate of George Washington University. I've been living in DC for the past 4 years now, but I just recently moved out because I'll be moving to the city to attend Fordham School of Law. I've had the pleasure of working at the Senate, the FDIC, and an intellectual property law firm here in DC. But now I'm ready to talk about honestly, I think one of the most important panels of today, because we have talked a lot about, the future of open, the future of this country, the future of America, and that starts with talking about the next generation's leaders. And thankfully, I know everyone is excited for lunch, but I think there's going to be so much talent, experience, and knowledge on this stage very shortly that everyone should definitely be tuned in. So, I definitely want to give introductions to these three very, very talented speakers. First, I'd like to introduce Dr. Nasser Qureshi. He is the former president and chief medical officer of QDX Pathology Services and the former chairman of APNA, the Association of Physicians of Pakistani Descent. Today, he serves as the board chair of the American Pakistan Foundation, which he joined in 2018. Please, everyone, give a round of applause. Next, we have Dr. Ijaz Ahmed, the founder of the American Pakistani Public Affairs Committee. He is an experienced cardiologist, entrepreneur, and philanthropist. Dr. Ahmed has been appointed by Governor Kathy Hochul to the Justice Center Advisory Council. And Dr. Ahmed's leadership emphasizes the dedication he has to public service and the betterment of marginalized communities. And that is a task key to the American Pakistani Public Affairs Committee, through civic engagement, their fundraisers, and supporting Pakistani voices in politics. And finally, someone that, as people have mentioned, he needs no introduction, our Tariq Khan, president of Open Global. He's an author, a clinical professor at New York University, and a distinguished business leader. He's a mentor to myself and so many here. Let's please welcome Tariq Khan. So, if we could just please start off with, each of you telling us a little bit about your organizations and, what your organizations do to prepare the next generation.
Guest. Thank you so much, for Open for inviting us. After such a powerhouse set of speakers, I don't know how, at least myself, is going to match that. The mission of APF from its beginning in 2009 has been to empower Pakistani American community. And somewhere down the line, this realization came in to empower the Pakistani American community. It's really empowering Indian professionals. That is something that I always dream of, and I joined APF under the conditions that becomes a solemn mission. I was looking for an organization that thought like me, because when you do something on an organizational level, you can hope for longevity. So the dream as it was formed within the organization was to create an alum or a fraternity of our next generation, which becomes generational, wherein they don't have to go looking around, but within themselves, they can help each other to grow and succeed. Now that was a dream, but I think that dream over the last couple of years has converted into a vision which is achievable, which is a great leap forward. Would it happen in a year or two? No, it will take more than that. So we first met, we had a lot of what was called the Emerging Leader Forum at that time, working with APF, young people and professionals. We met in Houston, there were 25 of them, and we spent a day and a half brainstorming of what this should look like. The one important lesson listening to all of them was, we don't want to tell them what to do. We give them a framework, but we need to sit back and let them figure out what they want to do and how they want to do it, but give them all the support and advice when we think it is needed or asked for. Every generation thinks differently from the previous generation. It's not the youth today, it's not the young professionals today. We did think when we were younger that our elders knew everything. We thought we knew everything. And those in the generation previous to us sat back and gave us the rope to hang ourselves, learn from our mistakes, made their next generation successful, and that was very important. And using that as a guiding principle, I think is how APF has succeeded in involving youth and young people all around the country. And COVID sort of put everything down on ice. But post-COVID, what has been done by our leadership council, as the chair of the leadership council, sitting somewhere around here, for this event, is amazing. It's absolutely phenomenal. And if we look at the, we have what, about 800,000 Pakistanis here, maybe a million. 60% are first generation Americans. That's, even if it's 800,000, that's a large number. But the most important thing is that for all of the people sitting in here, they have something to do with their children. But what is amazing is, having lived in New York all the time, the grocery store owner, cab driver, they are doing their best to make sure that the children get education and succeed. But they don't have the connections, right? If a friend of mine or someone sitting in this room is looking for a lawyer or an investment banker, there's always someone in the phone to call. I don't want to take too much time, but what is interesting about the generation growing up in America, while my children were growing up, I would say, I can call them, you can do an internship. They did not like it. They wanted to get it on their own merit, which is not how we were brought up, which is absolutely amazing. And they've all succeeded. I mean, I'm sure everyone has a great story about their children and the young folks around them. So today we are working to provide a leadership platform which hopefully over the years we can take it down to the high school.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you, Tarak Khan, for doing a phenomenal job and inviting us. I want to tell you a little bit about APPAC. It was 2016, I think, a lot of political rhetoric going on in the country. I think I was watching one day debate of Republicans and talking about Pakistan and not Pakistan, Muslims. That how there was some event happened, some terrorism event happened in, I think, in California. And Trump started talking about banning Muslims, and later he did it. So I was watching the Republican debate for half an hour, and they were just talking about Muslims. At that time, we started thinking that we should do something. We should have our own voice. Pakistanis are Muslims, especially. A lot of successful people here. This is an example of this room. And Silicon Valley, doctors, engineers, entrepreneurs, everything. But how many congressmen we see? How many assemblymen we see? How many? We don't have representation in the board. So if we don't have the voices, that's what they actually decide for us. So that was the reason we got involved and started doing community work and organizing things, and that's how APPAC was created, American Pakistani Public Affairs Committee. Since then, we have been active in multiple states. We try to engage with, I'll tell you later about the youth and other things. But I'll give you one example. We're meeting Senator, Majority Leader at that time, Senator Chuck Schumer, and we said, we don't have a single Muslim federal judge. So he said, you don't have anybody. Do you have any candidate? Give it to me. So and I'll appoint it. That was like a challenge to us. So we started looking for attorneys who can qualify. All over the country, we looked for almost 2 years. We found like 3 candidates. And we gave to Chuck Schumer, we gave to Senator Cory Booker, and then Foreign Affairs Committee Chair at that time, Bob Menendez. And they started looking into that. Finally, they decided that they're going to appoint to Zahid Qureshi. That was the first Muslim federal judge was appointed by President Biden. So that's what we are doing. And after that, we're going to continue. We have another candidate, Adil Mangi, who could not get into the federal judge position. But it was a big fight. Republicans stopped it. So that was the main mission behind APPAC.
Open started 28 years ago, almost, in Boston. And at that time, the purpose was very simple, how to connect entrepreneurs. And over the years, the organization has expanded into entrepreneurs and professionals. And we have a very simple goal, that when Google needs a CEO, when Uber needs a CEO, or these companies, these C-suite leaders, there is a career lifecycle organization of people who look like us, and they have a seat at the table. And the purpose of this session, most importantly, is how do we all sit together collectively? We're all going after the same goal. And the most important thing for us is, if you look at American presidents, the largest representation of American presidents are English and Irish. And some of them have never been to Ireland, but they're proud to say that they're Irish American. And the biggest fear that I have as a father, I love my children and they're very smart and wonderful and I can have bragging rights. But at times they don't think of themselves as Asian Americans. When needs, they become Pakistani American, but mostly they're more mainstream. How do we ensure that we bring them into this fabric? And we know that they are very smart. We know that they are better than us. How do we really change, especially younger women? Until we bring them into this process, we will never progress.
Absolutely, absolutely. Very glad to hear from all 3 of you. So each one of you are leaders in your own right and have served multiple different leadership positions. So briefly, how would you say leadership has changed by its norms and its practices from when you started working to how it is now? And more importantly, how can we start preparing ourselves as the youth, but also for many people here, how do we prepare our children to become leaders in this new age with new kinds of leadership?
You want to start with me? So, I'd like to defer to the format of the question.
Leadership hasn't changed over centuries. The principles of leadership remain the same. You have different generational attributes to which your mentors, your leaders, those who are looking forward with working with, they have to change. The perfect example is, of course, the Gen Zs. And some things that maybe we'll talk about later. But the most important part about leadership is there are some people who are born with it in the DNA. And there's some very smart people, young individuals, let's say, who we're talking about now, who are very smart, who do very well professionally, but are kind of introverts. So basically the ones who have leadership in their gene, if you are with them, working with them, they're working under you, you allow them to make mistakes, but be there to have their back so that they don't fall into a spiral. Then what you do with those who you know have the capabilities, you give them, start small, give them a group to lead, give them some task which is their own, and bring them out of their shell. I sincerely don't believe that you can learn leadership by reading. That thing that used to be on Saturday night, standing in front of a mirror every morning and saying, I'm great, I'm fabulous, and I can do everything doesn't work. You have to give it to them and let them do it. And of all the entrepreneurs and extremely successful people in this room, I don't think there would be one who hasn't made a mistake. And we all learn from mistakes. And if we have someone to have our back when we make mistakes, we are blessed.
I think if you see historically, the leadership before, people were mostly about the designations, like president and vice president, titles and roles and designations. Now we see mostly is about authenticity. People, young kids, active people who can work on social media, and they can work and collaborate with others. It's not about titles anymore. I think that is a change what I see nowadays. It was more like a hierarchy-based leadership before, but now it's like a more collaborative work with you can work with this race, you can work with this ethnicity, you can work with the religion. So more flexible and more authentic young leaders, I think that's what that makes the difference from older generation to new generation.
I think there's a transition going on from the classic leadership to the adaptive leadership. The classic leadership, if you look at the Jack Welch of the world, they created great organization, but they were very regimented in their leadership. Good leaders solve a problem. Great leaders create a problem that didn't exist and then solve it. So the world was going fine without Apple. And all of a sudden, Steve Jobs told us that everything that you use, I can put it together. We were all comfortable living in hotels, but then Uber came in, Airbnb came in and changed it. And so did Uber. Everyone used taxis, but they said no. And they formed the largest company without owning a vehicle. The largest hotel lodging company in the world does not own real estate. So I think the disruption has really become the new adaptive style. As Dr. Saab, both the doctors, they were saying, earlier people used to follow leaders. Now leaders really have to see what their customer employees want. Personally, I think the biggest challenge for leadership is going to come in next 10 to 20 or 30 years. So far we have been leading people and realizing that Gen Zs are different, millennials are different. Wait till the humanoids come, and when you have to lead non-humans. Probably people of my age will be saved, but younger people sitting, your grandchildren will be dating robots. So that would be interesting.
Can I just add something to what was just said? He gave a difference between good leaders and great leaders. There's a quote or a saying which I've always believed in. People see things as they are and ask why. I see things as they never were and ask why not. And that's what the great leadership's definition was. And for the young people at least here, balloon and about the leadership trends change. There's a word which goes around which has always been there for a long time, but it's become very fashionable. Servant leadership. I really don't know what that means. You work with people, you cater to them. This is, it just, a true leader is a leader. At the end, they will make decisions, hopefully with consensus.
So, just at that point, Imran Aftab, I don't know if he's in the room, when he talked about, there he is. Serving leader is not telling them where, we have to wait for another restroom, or we cannot hire, women with young children, but adapting to it. And that serving your people is servant leadership, and especially all of us in the organization. I don't know if I'm able to provide that servant leadership or not, but you really have to be looking at the people that you're serving and adapting and being flexible enough.
Great, yeah, no, I'm definitely learning a lot about leadership now. So all of you have worked with youth in many different ways with each one of your organizations. So for everyone, what do you think is one positive or innovative trait, leadership trait you've noticed in the youth that everyone can learn right now? And what is one trait that the youth can learn from many of the experienced leaders here?
And we start again.
It's up to you.
So let's separate out the Pakistani American youth from that's what our focus is. Remember, the immigrants and the first generation immigrants have a very different perspective of life because they're fighting to succeed. Their parents for the first generation are ensuring that they succeed because you're in a new country. As Zain Saab said, he landed here with a couple of $1,000 which are running out of fast. He had to succeed. He had challenges in life which he had to overcome. And we did not have a parent's home to go to in the evening and cry on their laps. Our children do. But being the first generation immigrant, seeing the parents struggle and be here, wherever all of you are, they have a desire to succeed. That's the positive. They also have a desire to work hard. And if that can be channelized and guided by counseling them or showing them the path, not doing it for them, because that's destruction. That is a great, that's a great thing that you can work with. The second part of the question was?
The second part was what was a trait that the next generation leaders can learn from the experience of people?
So I can tell you about myself, and I think that trait has been there, as I've always said. When I was forming my company, growing it, etc., I'm not a gambler. I don't even know how to play cards. But I always took calculated risks. What does that mean? If it failed, can I absorb the result of the failure? Right? So, if I went for expansion, I put in a certain amount of manpower and money into it. But if it failed, would I be able to take the backlash of it? So, take calculated risks, because without that you can't do anything. But don't gamble, because you lose your shirt. I don't know if everyone agrees here, but you have to take calculated risks, and some of them you will not come out of, but you will be able to take losses. So that's what I would say to all.
So if you look at the new generation and compare the older generation leaders, what I think older generation, they can learn from us or we learn from our older elders is resilience. So they were more resilient, had very hard times, like hunger, discrimination, immigration. How did we get here and face a lot of problems? That was the trait of older generation who survived through that. The new generation, however, I see that the older generation was working with the boundaries. So they would have this community, that community. New generation has a very good trait, which is they are inclusive. They are inclusive, I said they have instinct. By instinct, they will work with everyone. Probably social media or their education. That trait was not in me or others at my age, but the new generation is working with all kind of communities, ethnicity, religion, race, all kind of people they are working with. They don't have any boundary. But we were more resilient, but we were working in different boundaries.
I think every next generation is smarter than their previous generation because of the access to information and the resources they have available. I personally learn a lot from the next generation, and they're very well prepared. The only thing as an older generation that I would see that they can improve upon is the soft skills. Remember, the people who are hiring you are still from our generation. We shoe shine. We look at things differently. We shake hands and we hold the hand for 10 seconds. Every business, every success doesn't happen because of your qualification or your education. It happens because of your relationship. And some of you are only learning how to build a relationship on the screen, and when you see that person in person, you feel very awkward. So spend time with an older person, because the experience is and your age is, your risk taking is amazing. I personally believe the biggest risk in life is not taking a risk, right? So that comes natural. But spending time with an older person and always looking at their perspective, because people who are hiring you are still from that generation, learn the soft skill. How to interact with people, how to look eye to eye. And shake hand is not like this or not like this. Just put their hands and build a relationship. I think that's important.
Okay, thank you so much. So now I do have an individual question for each one of you. So first, Dr. Ijaz, you have been running the American Pakistani Public Affairs Committee, which was founded as a result of the frustration from the outcome of the 2016 election. Since then, we've unfortunately seen multiple financial crises, the COVID-19 pandemic, the genocide in Palestine, and the beginning of a second Trump presidency. How do you remain steadfast in your work rather than being overwhelmed by the unprecedented historical crises?
I think every day I face this problem. It's not easy. It's hard. There are some days which are really hard, and I feel like giving up. And we discuss in the board, and there are hard days. But I think when I see somebody young speaking on social media, standing up for a cause, Palestine or something, then we say, we have a purpose. We are giving voice to our community and us, so we have to continue. And it's faith. It's not only my own spiritual faith, but also there are good people out there. I think young people give me energy and my faith to keep it going. That's what it is. And I feel that I'm not alone, and nobody is alone. There is a community behind it. When you start a cause, you have people with you and they're supporting you. So all these factors keep you going every day.
Wonderful, wonderful. Tarek, from the many times I've had the pleasure of working with you, speaking with you, I have personally seen how much you have a passion for empowering women in these industries, especially the entrepreneurship space and the tech industry. However, unfortunately, we do still see both these industries being very male-dominated. What advice would you give for young women to kind of challenge those norms and still break through? And then what kind of advice would you give young men to kind of help support them in young women in the industry as well?
I think I'll give a C- to our generation for what we have done to women. And I don't want you to raise your hand for this question that I'm asking, but answer yourself. How many of you were alive in February 1971? Don't raise your hands. By looking at it, I know a lot of us. That is the month that a country like Switzerland allowed women to vote. 1971, Switzerland, which is one of the most powerful countries. Today in America, women are paid 83 cents compared to men paid $1 for that. And according to Goldman Sachs, it will take us 100 years to bring gender pay parity. So every CEO sitting out there, if you want to change the world, just tomorrow announce. I know you CFOs will not allow you. Announce that in the next 5 years, we'll pay women same that we pay men. The world will change. So I think we have done very poor. But the good news is, when I look at my classes, I see 80% women and 20% men. Which means most of us and most of you will end up working for a younger woman. Because they're getting higher education. This is a master's class, right? Organizations like us We are dying for our next generation to take over from us. The good thing is that our women, younger women, are very fearless and they know how to get things done. The only recommendation, and I want to say it very carefully to all women, younger women especially, be very competitive. You will go and work for most older men like me. And when you go for work for these companies, you will give a great idea. And an older man like me will come up and repeat that idea and will make it his own idea. Stop him and say, Zen, thank you so much for taking my idea. I really like it. Because men are very good at this. They take women's idea and they convert. Don't let that happen. And then rest is okay. And my 5 minutes sign is up.
And Mr. Qureshi, the American Pakistan Foundation has a series of programs for youth, from the Emerging Leaders Program, to the Rising Stars Program, to the Fellowship Program, to the UN Initiative Program. So I think it's fair to assume that you've had a lot of exposure with many of the active and passionate youth of this next generation. What do you think is one myth or misconception about the youth that many of us have that you'd like to dispel today?
That's a difficult question. Coming to the women, I think what we did was the Rising Stars, as you just mentioned, recognizes outstanding women of Pakistani descent. And it's been 2 years, and last year was Women Empowering Women. And to our amazement, the number of entries we got and the work that they're doing is outstanding. And we have been recognizing Pakistani women, so we initiated that. And we have a major push in the board to bring gender equity in our board, so that we have a reasonable percentage of women as our board. Frame the last sentence of your question again. I would think about it.
I was saying, what is one myth or misconception that people have about the next generation in the workforce that you'd like to dispel?
So let's take over the millennials and Gen Y.
Gen Z.
Well, let's talk about Gen Z.
Yeah.
Our Gen Z is better than the rest of the Gen Zs because they're still hard working. But the myth that I've had last 5 years of my active work, I had about 10 years work. And there are all those myths that you are all aware of. They're not hardworking. They want entitlement. They move around in deep jobs. There's no loyalty. And some of it may be true. And you have to be very careful. I changed my entire terminology working with them, and I had quite a few of them, because they can turn around and tell you you're thought blocking me. Anything that you say, that you come up with a fancy word and you say, what does that mean? But it's not entirely true. How should I put it? They don't come to work for you and say how I can fit into your complex structure. What they're looking for is how you can empower me to meet my goals, which we did not do. We went there, we worked hard. Didn't look left or right, that's what we were taught. Work hard and you'll succeed. And there's nothing wrong with that. And everyone said that, they will hang their lab coats at 5 o'clock. Doesn't really matter. But what I did had a patient's life at the other end. But if you worked with them, listen to them, empower them, they actually are amazing. But when you ask this generation an earlier question, if you are in a leadership position, you just have to, for Gen Z especially, you just have to change your mindset, and you will have them, you'll see them deliver a lot more than expectation, and maybe their co-workers. So, as Tariq said, we have to adapt ourselves to them. It's not that they're lazy, they don't want to succeed, etc., etc.
Wonderful. And on one last note, we can talk about the future. And one of the biggest topics in the future right now is AI. So I've attended the Open Global events in the past couple of days, the Tech Destination Platform events, and something I remember is from Mr. Sajjad Saeed. He he was saying that Pakistan had unfortunately missed the Industrial Revolution, it had missed the Internet Revolution in the 80s and 90s, but it will not miss the AI revolution. I think we can all agree that if we want to seize this opportunity, the youth need to be involved, they need to be part of this wave. What kind of programs or initiatives or advice do you have to make sure that the youth can be part of this next wave, make sure that we don't get left behind in this?
We have like 30 seconds to finish this, and I'll take 10 seconds. I am very appreciative of Dr. Ijaz, Dr. Nasir Qureshi coming, and all three organizations, EPF, APPAC, and Open teaming together to make sure that our next generation is fully involved, engaged, and they take the leadership from here.
I think we are working on it that when the youth are involved in AI projects, they have to not use it, but create with it, build something, publish something. That's what our emphasis is.
So IT used to be an IT programmer, etc., etc., etc. AI affects everyone, right? You have to learn how to use it. And create it is one thing, but every aspect of life, AI is going to affect. And I've been resisting, I'm an old dog, right? Older. So I've been resisting to learn how to use it, but we all have to learn how to use it, and that will become critical for the next generation and so on. So those who created are the IT guys or whatever, but learning to use it will become extremely critical for everyone. Thank you.
I'll close on this note. You have AI, and we have OI, artificial intelligence, original intelligence.